Frank Jones sells computer and word processing systems. Jerry Blay is an accountant. Bob Flynn teaches high school students. But twice a month you'll find them at work here. While we are enjoying a weekend of relaxation, they're rehearsing for the next war. They are members of the Army National Guard's attack helicopter unit that's located at the Albany County Airport. 36 helicopters, 250 guardsmen, and 51 federal technicians make up Company D of the 42nd Aviation Battalion. They operate out of this recently completed $2 million facility and pump over $3 million into the local economy. The company's 50 pilots have a total of over 70,000 hours of flight time. Most of them, like the battle-scarred aircraft they fly, are Vietnam combat veterans. Frank Jones is one of those men. He has over 2,000 hours of flight time and saw action in 1973. His love for flying goes back to his childhood.
My father was a sea captain, and as a very young man, about 18, I was on a ship with him, and there was some fighters that were passing over, and I looked up into the sky, and I said to my mother, who was standing by, I said, someday I'm going to be up there.
Bob Flynn had those same ambitions when he was the age of the students that he now teaches at East Greenbush Columbia High School.
Well, ever since I was a small boy, as with many small boys, you're always awed and impressed when you hear an airplane go overhead. And I did spend a lot of time making model airplanes. For your birthday, you got this model, and you got that for Christmas. And I guess it sort of grew initially from that.
While Bob and Frank were dreaming of flying, Jerry Blay was piloting a Navy dive bomber during the Second World War. He has over 4,000 hours of flight time, 39 years of military experience, 18 of that in the National Guard. Jerry is the oldest member of the unit. At 58, he's as combat ready as any of them. Anyone ever try to accuse you of being too old to fly or anything like that?
Sure. Well, I thought I said, if I mention helicopters, they figure I'm a passenger in one. They say, you drive one of those? An old fellow like you? I said, sure. We did a lot of anti-submarine patrol in the old days from an aircraft carrier. We'd fly, say, 5 hours, a single ship out over the ocean, never see anything except water. Now we're flying through the bushes, through the trees, and upstream beds and under power lines.
That treetop flying is the result of a new strategy. On the modern-day battlefield, the helicopter has become the primary defense against the ever-increasing numbers of Soviet tanks. Company D's commanding officer, Captain ART KRAMER, explains.
We have an altitude restriction of about 50 feet above the ground. The reason for this is that the Soviet arsenal of weapons are so designed that they will pick up through radar and optical devices any target above 50 feet, and therefore they would neutralize our effectiveness. So what we practice is what's called nap of the earth, or NOE.
The pilots practice for their low-level combat missions over the Adirondack Mountains at Camp Drum in Watertown. It's a team effort. A small scout ship and a gunship armed with air-to-ground missiles work together. It's the job of the scout to locate targets using reconnaissance information. The scouts are like cheese in a mousetrap because they often draw fire. While they're looking for potential targets, the gunships wait in a holding area. The pilots of both aircraft fly behind ground cover to camouflage their movements. They bob in and out of clearings in the forest. And there's always the danger of getting tangled up in the trees.
You don't know what's out in front of that next tree or that next clearing out there. Is there an enemy emplacement in there? You're going to be looking down the barrel. You've got to be very careful. It's very tiring to a pilot because you've got to be, not only aware of the instruments in the aircraft, the control field of the aircraft, but you also have to be aware where those trees are.
Once the scout ship finds the enemy emplacement, he uses coded instructions to direct the gunship to the target, undetected. Upon the command of the scout, the gunship moves in for the kill. After firing the rockets, the gunship gets down as quickly as possible, hopefully without a shot being returned by the enemy. Then it's on to another target. For Frank Jones, The maneuvers at Camp Drum bring back memories of Vietnam.
And normally people really don't talk too much about their experiences over there. The story has to do with Bill Cullum, and Bill Cullum was a scout pilot. Billy wrote outside my door the things he liked and the things he disliked. And some of the things he liked were Florida and deer rosing, which meant leaving the Army, that he liked to fly. Then he writes things that I don't like, and some of it is, there's some things I can't say here, Bob, but one is Vietnam and another is some captains, and the very last thing he wrote here, which is ironic, he wrote, quote, being trapped in a helicopter, unquote. And that's exactly how that man died. The aircraft crashed in the LZ. The cyclic control of the helicopter and the radio consoles trapped them in, and for 3 days and 3 nights they played dead. But on the third day he gave up his life by saying they're not going to get us out, they're not going to get us out, they're not going to get us out, and he died. The other man lived. But in attempting to get this man and his co-pilot out, and a crew chief and door gunner, 19 other people were killed and 26 others were wounded.
Despite their personal tragedies, these men are dedicated. They do what they do for a variety of reasons. They enjoy the camaraderie, can use the extra income, and above all, love to fly. They think of themselves as citizen soldiers and reject the weekend warriors label that was applied to the Guard in the 60s when it became a means for avoiding the draft. The Guard members are not just trained in the techniques of destruction. They're prepared to help in emergencies. Last year, 2 of the unit's helicopters assisted in guiding a lost student pilot to a safe landing. With the move to an all-volunteer Army, the Guard has become an even more important link in the national defense. The members of Company D have more combat experience than their counterparts in the regular Army. But they need more men and women, preferably 18-year-olds. Well, high school teacher Bob Flynn is a product of the National Guard, and he recommends it for certain types of individuals.
There's 2 routes that young people could go. Number one, well, they would all begin with enlistment in the Guard unit. And once they're enlisted, if they decided that they wanted to, they could go on active duty to a Warrant Officer Candidate School, or they could get their commission through the Empire State Military Academy and then go on to flight school. Or if they just wanted to come in and function as crew chiefs, mechanics on aircraft, this is another possibility.
So if you're tired of the 9-to-5 grind and you want to put some action into your weekends, you might think about calling the National Guard at the Albany County Airport. This is Robert Riggs for Special Edition.